Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. This week we got an amazing summit. We have F1 cars, cockpit view, no speedo and no nitro. This to me has been one of the best summit weeks so far, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're going to talk about F1 cars in particular, with season 17 apparently being about F1, you know, because of rumors. I thought about it. What F1 cars do we want to see in the crew MotorFest? So I'm going to list 10 cars we want to see in the crew MotorFest. You know, let's get into it. But I'm going to give you some criteria. I'm not going to use current season cars. I'm not going to use cars from the last 5 years. That's a criteria. We're going to look for some weird and some iconic F1 cars to bring into the game. So let's go with number 1. The Alfa Romeo 158/159 Alfetta. This car should be included just for being the first ever F1 car to win this championship. This car was used in the inaugural Formula 1 championship year. Powered by a 1.5 inline 8 supercharged, this thing was successful. Piloted by Nino Farina, who was the first world champion, and also piloted by a future world champion many times, Juan Manuel Fangio, getting an impressive 10 wins in Formula 1, 10 poles, 2 championships with Nino Farina and Juan Manuel Fangio. This thing deserves to be in this game. Yes, it's not going to go in Alpha GP, so it's probably going to go in Street Tier 1, but what a car to bring into this game. I think it deserves it. It looks so good too. So bring it into the game, my boys. Cool, on to number 2. The McLaren MP4/5 or the 5B. This thing is awesome. Piloted by Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. Powered by a V10 engine. This thing is awesome. It's one of my favorite F1 cars of all time. So good even I have it tattooed on my arm with Ayrton Senna driving. Winning 16 races, 36 podiums, 27 pole positions. This thing piloted Alain Prost to win the 1989 World Championship, and in 1990 in the B variant Ayrton Senna won it. The iconic Marlboro livery is perfect and I think it needs to grace this game. Yes, it's a cigarette company, so it's not that good to kids, but we need this car in the game. I want to drive this all around Hawaii. This thing is my favorite F1 car of all time, and it's an actual sin that it's not in this game. So please, the crew, I beg you, bring this car in. The MP4/5 or the 5B, please. I love this thing. On to number 3. The Tyrrell P34. Yes, a 6-wheeled Formula 1 car, but don't be fooled by the fact it has 6 wheels. This thing was actually really good. It was very competitive. It won 1 race, 14 podiums, 1 pole position. Like, what the f*** is going on, F1? Introduced in 1976 to be driven by Jody Scheckter and Patrick Depailler, powered by the iconic Cosworth DFV V8. When I think of Formula 1 cars from the 70s, this is one of the cars I go to. It's the most iconic looking F1 car that ever existed. 6 wheels, and it was actually quite successful. It's wild to look at, and I think they killed it with this design. Whether we will ever see an F1 car with 6 wheels again is probably a no, but this thing is iconic and needs to come into the game. They didn't just use it for 1 season, they used it for 2 seasons, which is even cooler. Also cool that it featured in the film Rush. You can see these in the background in the film Rush, which just brings me so much joy. They are iconic. So on to number 4. The Ferrari F2002. This thing won 14 out of 17 races, and it was piloted by the icon Michael Schumacher and his teammate Rubens Barrichello. This car was in the V10 era, so you get the most iconic sound in the world. When I think about the shape and design of an F1 car, this is the car I still imagine and think about. This is where F1 was at its best for me. Just the livery alone for me is so iconic. You just look at this thing and you know it's a Ferrari, you know it's an F1 car. This thing is a legend, and of course it is piloted by one of the greatest racers to have ever lived. And to be honest with you, I think we should always remember what a driver Schumacher was, so to have this car in the game would be the biggest tribute to that man. Yes, he could have been a dirty driver at times, but my god, what a driver he was, so this car needs to come into the game just for that tribute. But on to number 5. The Lotus 72. Look at this thing, look at this wedgie boy, it's so nice. I love this thing, and the livery is so cool. Out of the 75 races it's ever raced in, it got 20 wins, 39 podiums, 17 poles, and it took 2 world champions, with a posthumous win from Jochen Rindt, who unfortunately passed away before he won the world championship, but was still successful enough to win it, and a second win from Emerson Fittipaldi in 1972. Powered by that iconic Cosworth DFV V8, this thing was so successful, winning 3 constructor championships as well in 1970, 1972 and 1973, piloted by some really big names like Jochen Rindt, Emerson Fittipaldi, Ronnie Peterson and Jackie Ickx. Just for the looks, this thing deserves to be in the game, but the fact it's so successful and it looks this good, I think it needs to come into the Crew MotorFest. What do you think? I think it does. On to number 6, the Williams FW14B. This thing took Nigel Mansell to his 1992 World Championship win. It looks so good. I think this is a gorgeous car. Powered by a Renault V10, this thing sounded as good as it looks. As successful as this car was, it was very controversial. It had active suspension, so this meant it could take turns, correct itself, and also help with the oscillations. This thing was so good that it was incredibly dominant. Nigel himself actually won 9 out of the 16s races that year. His teammate Riccardo Patrese also did win a race, but it wasn't as successful. If they can ever bring this car in, they would definitely need to bring it in with that active suspension. That would be amazing. Just seeing this thing take the corners and correct itself would be so cool. And the videos watching this thing working with the active suspension is actually iconic. So on to number 7! Okay, this might be a cop-out, but I'm gonna say the McLaren MP4/4. Yes, I mentioned the /5, but this one here is one of the most successful F1 cars of all time. In 1988, this thing won 15 out of 16 of its races, only losing when Senna crashed with Jean-Louis Schlesser. I know you're gonna say that Max Verstappen's won more races with the RB19, but however, if we look at the percentages, this won 93% of the races. Plus, look at this thing. This is gorgeous. This to me is the 80s. This is the 80s F1 and it looks perfect. I think the MP4/4 is one of the best looking F1 cars to ever have come out, with 2 of the most iconic racers behind the wheel, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna. Designed by Steve Nichols and technical director Gordon Murray. Yes, that Gordon Murray. This thing was perfect. It was the most successful car to have ever come out of F1. So for that reason alone, if this doesn't come to the crew one day, I'll be very sad. I might even cry. Powered by that brutal V6 turbocharged engine, this thing was awesome. And back then, this thing had some insane power. It had 675 brake horsepower, which is crazy for a car of that era. On to number 8! As we don't have anything from the 60s, how about this? The Lotus 33. This is the World Championship winning car from 1965, driven by Jim Clark, an all-around incredible driver. Powered by the Climax 1.5 V8, this thing was competitive. This brought Jim Clark his 2nd ever World Championship and his last, sadly. With that iconic green and yellow livery, this thing would look really cool in the Crew MotorFest. I think when it comes to F1 cars, you can never forget the 60s. Back in the 60s and 70s, that's when the sport was at its most dangerous, so we lost so many incredible, promising drivers, including Jim Clark himself at the age of 32. So to have cars from the 60s would be a huge honour. These racers put their life on the line just to bring entertainment and also fulfill their need for speed, inspiring safety so that F1 drivers of today will survive any crash. Yes, I know you've got some iconic cars from the 60s. You have people like Jackie Stewart with the Tyrrells, you have Graham Hill with the Lotuses as well. So you have some notable people, but I do feel like Jim Clark would be an epic person to honour in this game and bring in his car because it looks the best, and I think it would be awesome to get it into this game. Yes, I would love Jackie Stewart's Tyrrell, but this thing looks awesome. So let's go on to number 9. The Benetton B194. This thing was the first F1 car that Michael Schumacher won a world championship in 1994. Powered by the Ford V8, this thing was really competitive. Schumacher won 8 races out of the 16, and when he wasn't winning, he got second, disqualified or retired. So he never left the podium unless he was retired or disqualified, which is insane to think of. The livery on these things looks so good. I think this is a really cool look, and it shows the dominance of Michael Schumacher from his first competitive stint. To have this in the Crew MotorFest would be really cool. I know it's a 1994 car, and I know people would say, why wouldn't you include Senna's car? To be honest with you, I don't really want to be putting the Senna Williams into the Crew MotorFest because, let's face it, Senna was not getting on well in Williams before his tragic death, so I really do not want to see that car in this game, and I don't think it looks as good as the older Williams in my opinion. So the Benetton with the V8, we want that in the game, and it looks good, and it shows the dominance of Michael Schumacher in the first title win. Okay, we're up to our number 10, and this one here is a little bit of a tribute. The Marussia MR03. This was piloted by Jules Bianchi and Max Chilton in the 2014 season. This was powered by a 1.6 litre V6 turbocharged, part of the hybrid era. That power plant was a Ferrari power plant, but that doesn't mean it was competitive. Sadly, it was a backmarker car. That was until Monaco. Monaco, we saw the genius of Jules Bianchi, who brought this car to 9th, bringing this car into the points for the first time ever, seeing Marussia's first ever points. A brilliant talent, he was part of the Ferrari Academy, and to be honest, I think he could have made it all the way to grace the seat of Ferrari in the future, but unfortunately, at Japan GP, he crashed, unfortunately. The Japanese GP was hit by a typhoon, meaning the race was very limited, seeing a lot of the race behind a safety car. There was a few offs, and unfortunately one of them being Adrian Sutil. He went off at the Dunlop curve and hit the barrier, and the recovery trucks came out to try and lift him. Unfortunately, the next lap, Jules Bianchi would lose control of his car and he would hit that recovery vehicle, being put in a coma, which led to his death. This was the first death seen in F1 since Senna, and it was such a horrible situation. I watched that race live on TV, and it still to this day completely scars me. You know, you don't see the actual impact, but someone shared the actual video of the crash, and it's unwatchable. So rest in peace, Jules Bianchi. I think this car should be brought into the game just to honour this talented up-comer who would have graced Ferrari. It's just a sad situation, and I think that Jules Bianchi should be remembered forever. But that is my list. That is my list of 10 F1 cars that need to come into the game. I think we need some F1 cars. I know what you're gonna say. EA Codemasters, they own the licensing for F1. I get it. But if we're gonna have this so-called F1 season, then we're going to have F1 cars. Come on, use your brains, my boys. But yes, I think that F1 cars would be epic in this game. I love driving the Alfa GP cars, so I think we need more. So what Alfa GP cars do you want to see in the game? What F1 cars would you love to see in the game? I've just described some of the most beautiful, iconic, but what would you like to see? Would you like to see some of the Mercedes come in? Some of the Red Bulls? Some of the Alfa Tauris? Because they look gorgeous, by the way. The Alfa Romeos? Any of them? I'd love to know. Go into the comments, I would love to see it. But thank you for watching, I hope you have a lovely day. Today I got a day off, so I thought I would make a video. Cool, goodbye. My boys, bye.